Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Montgomery High School's second ever webinar from the guidance department. And this time we're talking about the college application process. I am Keith Glock, and here with me is Matt Pogue. And it would probably help if I could turn off our system volume here. Give a second. Get off of that screen. Apologies for that. Let's make sure that I'm off of that. Okay. There we go. Welcome back. That was our first do-over from the college application process. I am Keith Glock. This is Matt Pogue. Mr. Pogue, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully we can answer your questions and leave you with good feeling about this whole process.
I feel like we're going to be able to do that, Matt. We're going to start things off here today by switching you over to one of our PowerPoints that we have created, and we'll flip back and forth. You'll see a little bit of Matt and I, and you'll see a little bit about the college application process itself. The first thing that we want to do today is define some of the goals for you. We're going to provide a working understanding of what's going on, about who is going to do what regarding their responsibilities. Hopefully that'll show everybody at home exactly how students are going to accomplish all of these different tasks that we have set out for them, and then how that will work hand in hand with the things that we will do as counselors and what the teachers are also going to do. We want to talk about some hot button issues that we know are going to be on your minds, and then we're also going to answer any questions that remain. So in the same vein of answering those questions, make sure that if you are watching from an embedded situation in the Montgomery High School guidance page, if you actually click on the YouTube link to go to the actual YouTube site, Kelly Appel and Jessica Ritson are live on that page, and you can type any questions that you have into the questions or to the commentary section there. And any easy questions, they're going to be answering live as we go through. But if there's some things that maybe they feel like are a little bit, kind of we want to expand on a little bit more, they'll throw those to us at the end of the webinar, and we'll get to everything that anybody has to offer. That said, we want to get to our first hot button topic of the day, and that's going to be early decision. So when it comes to early decision, we recognize that the last couple of years we've had students just more often coming down to us saying, which school should I early D to? And, the first question that comes out of our mouths is, well, why do you think you have to apply to a school early decision? And the answer, pretty unanimously is, well, you have a much better chance of getting in if you, apply early decision. So here are some things that we want you to understand. That number one, that's a myth. You do not stand a better chance of being admitted if you apply early decision as opposed to a different deadline. Why do people think that you stand a better chance? Because colleges are telling you, oh, look at our admissions percentage. The percentage of admitted students in the early decision period is much higher than it is during the regular period. Well, that's definitely true. But ask yourself this question. Do the admissions criteria change during the early decision period? The answer is obviously no. The admissions criteria remains the same, but the reason that the admissions acceptance rate is so much higher in that early decision period is because you have a pool of largely very qualified applicants, and a lot of them are special interest applicants. Applicants that are pretty sure that they have guaranteed admission, whether they're recruited athletes, whether that's a different special interest in terms of being maybe a child of faculty. It could be a number of different situations that the school will never tell us about. But all those students are getting accepted in the early decision period, and that is the reason for the higher admittance rate. It is not because it is easier to get in. So please, the only time that we really ideally want students applying early decision to school is if it is absolutely the student's number one choice, and as a family you've had a decision about economics and that school is an affordable school. If you have to pay the full price, because let's face it, in the early decision process, the school knows that they are guaranteeing you admittance to school, and they don't necessarily have a incentive to offer you any financial aid. So that kind of, will take us to that. As we now sneak back here into the PowerPoint, I'll turn it over to Matt.
All right, so what we're going to be talking about here is what makes a completed application. So the students are responsible for a couple of things, the main one being the actual application. They need to fill that out, make sure they're submitting it by the deadline. Another thing the student needs to do is also send their test scores. So the test scores are not sent automatically. It's not something that we can do for them. If they've taken the SAT, they're going to send it through College Board in a similar way that they registered. And if they took the ACT, they're going to go onto the ACT site and also send their scores from there. So what we're going to be responsible for in guidance is sending their letter of recommendation from their counselor. We're also going to be sending the school profile, their transcript, and really anything else that we need to based on a specific student. Then the teachers, their part is going to be their letter of recommendation. So they're going to send after a student requests it from them, and hopefully, as we've talked to them about, they're going to talk to their teacher in person and make sure that they've already discussed this before requesting it in Naviance. So when all of those pieces are brought together, then they're going to have a completed application. They're actually ready to apply and say, all right, let's wait for a decision.
Without all three of those phases, we're talking about incomplete in terms of an application. What will happen is, and it doesn't really matter in what order that these items are received, the first piece of information that a school receives on a student, they begin in an electronic file. And then as all the rest of those pieces begin to come together, they're automatically put into that same file. And then as soon as that stuff is all ready, then the school kind of has its own little internal systems that'll trigger their review process. So as we keep going here, can't stress enough how easily Naviance and the Common Application work in terms of working together. We call them a great marriage, and they certainly are. You will have to marry them as the officiant of the college application, and we're going to show you how to do that. And I wanted to tell you, Naviance does some things really, really well. It integrates the Common Application, and it allows us on the counselor side and the teacher side to send transcripts and letters of recommendation very, very easily. The other cool thing that it does is it tells us, hey, this was submitted on this particular date. It tells us even when the school downloaded it. It also notifies teachers every time a student submits a recommendation request via Naviance. But there are some things that Naviance doesn't do very well. First and foremost, counselor notification. So I just ran through a scenario where a student submits a teacher letter of recommendation request, and Naviance sends that teacher an email. Well, there's going to be some buttons that you guys are going to click off, in Naviance that looks like you're requesting transcripts. And when in reality, it doesn't notify the counselor at all that that transcript has been requested. So that's a seemingly large hole in the system. But we have closed that loophole, thankfully, because we recognize that it is a loophole. And the thing that we close them with is called digital pink cards.
So some people are probably wondering, if you haven't had a student that already applied through our guidance department, why are you calling it a digital pink card? So there actually used to be a physical card that they had to fill out for the schools they were applying to, and it was actually a paper and pencil thing. So we've digitized all that, so now it's really just a Google form that they're filling out. So they're going to give us some information, and it's going to trigger us to actually know we need to send transcripts, school profile, letters of recommendation for that student. So that's going to be our notification that Naviance isn't sending us, so we can make sure that we know where things need to go.
Here's something to remember as well. With the pink cards, there are two items that are of just complete importance. The first thing is that students have to be logged into their web browser with their MTSD student account in order to have access. You can also be sure that you have to fill out your own counselor's pink card. There are links to each counselor, or for each counselor, I should say, to have their own individual pink card. So if students are working on this process together at the same time, don't say, oh, hey, let me borrow your laptop for a second and submit your pink card, because it might end up going to the wrong counselor, and we don't really want that. How do we get to a pink card? Well, we created a Google Classroom for the students, and here is the join code. We had given this information to each and every one of them during their English classes last week, so they should all be members of this Google Classroom already, and if they're not, you can just refer back to this slide and have them join that Google Classroom. I'm going to give you some assurances right now that if you follow the directions on the digital pink card and follow the steps that we're going to go through here with you today, you're golden. So let's take a look at that digital pink card, and we're going to do so right here. So all this is a Google form, something that the students have filled out a bunch of times before, and we're also going to ask for parent and guardians' names. Now tell them why we're going to ask for the parent's guardian's name.
So in the rare case that a student doesn't follow the exact directions the way we've laid out, there is a way that we're going to know. So we need to make sure that certain steps were taken before you're submitting this pink card. And one of them involves, filling out a brag sheet, making sure the parents filled it out, parent point of view. So if you say that these things were done, and then we go back and look and they were not done, then we're going to make sure that we email out to parents and the student and kind of say, hey, you said this was done, it's not done. We really can't complete this request yet.
And the request will get deleted and everybody will have to start over anyhow. And if you do decide to check no on this form, it will stop you and say, well, sorry, you can't go on until you do that. So there's also a direct link right there to that section that we need completed. As parents, did you guys complete the parent point of view? We're going to take for granted that you have at this point. And from here, we've created a couple of instructional videos that, kind of things that need doing before we can move on. The first one is going to be matching our Common App account to our Naviance account, and it's actually a pretty simple process, but we'll take you through it right now. In this video, we're going to be learning how to link our Common Application accounts with our Naviance accounts. The first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to navigate to commonapp.org, and if you don't have an account yet, you can create one. And once you have that account, you can put your credentials in here, and then you can go ahead and sign in. And if it's the first time you're signing in, you're going to see a welcome screen here at the front. You're going to need to navigate to the My Colleges tab here at the top, and obviously since you haven't added any colleges there yet, you're going to need to add some. So in the College Search tab, you can search for anything really that you want. So if we were looking for the College of New Jersey, just start typing the College of New, and there it says. There it is. We're going to add that. Let's add a couple more here just so that we can have some variety. Stockton University will stay in New Jersey, and we'll also add Rider. Once you arrive here on the My Colleges tab, it doesn't matter which of these colleges you select to expand, but once you do expand it, there's a link for recommenders and FERPA, and that is what you're going to have to go ahead and click. We're going to complete the authorization form here, and you're going to read this information carefully. You'll check off that you have read it, and then you'll continue. You're also going to acknowledge that you have read this statement here, and when you do that, it will expand the box. From here, you have some choices. You can either waive or not waive your right to review your recommendation and information. Waiving your right to view this information means that you will never be able to see any of your recommendations. Not waiving your right to see those recommendations, however, does not mean that you get to view them immediately. You would not be able to view any recommendations or information until you have applied, have been accepted, and are matriculating at a college or university. That means practically that you would have to be a freshman in college, and you would have to go to the admissions department and request a copy of your recommendation and documentation, and then they would provide it to you. It is the recommendation of the Montgomery High School Guidance Department that you waive your right to view your recommendations and documents. The reason for that is because some teachers or other outside recommenders may refuse to write a letter of recommendation for you unless you waive your right to see those documents. You also need to check that you understand that your waiver selection cannot be changed once you make this selection. You're going to sign your name here in the box and make sure that it matches what is written in your Naviance account, and you can also select the date. You'll then click Save and Close. Now that you've completed the FERPA release authorization on the Common Application side, you also need to complete some information on the Naviance side, and here's how you get there. You can start by navigating to the Montgomery High School main page and then clicking on Departments and Counseling and Guidance. If you scroll down the page, you'll see Naviance about halfway down here on the left, and you can use your login information here to get yourself to the home page. Once you are here, you can click on Colleges I'm Applying to. And it's going to tell you that you're not currently able to apply to Common App schools, and why is that? Because you haven't matched your accounts. So you're going to come over here and click Match Accounts, and once you match, you cannot unmatch. So make sure that you're using the correct email address that you use to log into the Common App, and make sure that your date of birth also matches that which is in the Common Application. From there, you just click Match Accounts, and then you see some green check boxes, and you are all set. You have successfully matched your Naviance account with your Common Application account. So now that is the first step, obviously, that needs doing before anything else in Naviance really will work. And as we're going to switch back over here to our pink card, you will see we obviously have to tell it, yes, we did match, and go on to our next screen. So we're going to skip over this video here because the portion that is really important in this video is actually covered as well in the next video, just in case anybody watched these out of order. And also, as a point of reference, these are posted on the senior class information page on the Montgomery High School guidance page, and they're also on the welcome screen whenever your child will log into their Naviance account. All these videos are posted in addition to being here in the pink card. So did we add some schools to the Colleges I'm Applying to list? Yeah, we'll say yes for right now, and we're going to show you in a moment just how to do that. All the schools that you put into your Colleges I Am Applying to list, we're also going to ask you to put here into your list. We ask you to just type them. We just kind of type them in. There we go. It's a required question, meaning I had to answer it. So Matt, what if I just put Ohio in here? What would you think?
Well, that's probably going to raise some questions from me because...
What possible questions could you have if I just write Ohio?
Well, I guess there is only that one school in Ohio. Oh, no, there are a few, right? So I guess we're going to wonder which school, and we really can't send anything until we're sure, because the last thing we want to do in this process is assume that we knew where the student meant. So we're going to have to get them down, and we're going to have to ask them, where did you need this to go? And that's just going to slow things down. So we'd rather them be far more specific the first time through so we know exactly where to send things.
So the more information, the better is the moral of that story, because on the backside of Naviance, we always have some decisions that we can make in terms of, just where we want to send that, information, because Penn State has about 54 different options for us as counselors of where we might want to send things. So the more the merrier, basically, when it comes to information. So as we flip back over here to our pink card, we're going to ask now, are we applying early decision? I'm going to say no. If you are applying early decision, we really need to know this information on this screen, because this is another area where Naviance does not automatically notify a counselor about an early decision agreement that needs to be signed. Because as you know, when you apply early decision to a school, you have to sign a contract as a student. As a parent, you guys are going to also sign a contract that says, yes, if we understand that if my child gets in, that they are going to go. And as counselors, we also sign an agreement that says, yes, we have had a discussion with the student and we understand the implications to an early decision agreement. So that needs to be done by us as well in Naviance. So as we're going to go next now, this is a pretty important screen in terms of these deadlines. Matt, you want to take that one away?
Right, so every year we have students that kind of run into this issue, and we hope that we can clear it up so that they don't have undue stress. The left side is the application deadline. That is when the student actually has to submit their application by. This is completely on the student's application. It's separate from this pink card. It is just them submitting the application. The other side is when we need this Google form done. So we need their pink card by the date listed on the right, because that's going to give us the time we need to actually write their letter, make sure all their transcript information is together, and make sure things are where they need to be before we send them out. So the student does not have to have the entire application done and submitted by the Google form deadline. Every year some student thinks that they do, and we want to make sure that they know they do not need to do that. Just our portion.
Just the pink card. Just the pink card. So this first checkbox says that I'm aware that my counselor needs 15 school days, and that again is what this Google form deadline is, 15 school days prior to the application deadline. We send your first 5 transcripts for free. Every additional transcript is $2. We accept those in the guidance office, and students actually will not receive their diploma unless they actually have paid that fee. That's an interesting piece of information every time we tell that to the kids. We have to check out that you understand that we do not send SAT or ACT scores. That is something that is entirely done by the family because they cost money and you have to pay for it. And Montgomery Guidance does not also send teacher letters of recommendation. That is also only coming from the teachers. Okay, so lastly, we're going to show you how to submit teacher letters of recommendation in Naviance, and it's also going to show you as a piece of this how to move colleges from that colleges I'm thinking about list into that colleges I'm applying to list. So let's take a look at it. In this video, we're going to learn how to request teacher letters of recommendation in Naviance. First thing we're going to do is go to the high school homepage, and then we're going to click on Departments, and then go to the Counseling and Guidance page. About halfway down, we'll see Naviance, and if you click that, if you're not already logged in, go ahead and log in. One thing that you have to have is a couple of colleges in your Colleges I'm Applying To tab. And I do have a couple of colleges in here, and in fact, I've already requested a couple teacher letters of recommendation for Rowan and George Washington. But if you don't have colleges in your Colleges I'm Applying To, you're going to have to go ahead and add some. So you would just go to your Colleges I'm Thinking About list and find a school that you're applying to and check it off and click Move Application to List. And I'm going to apply via the Common Application. And why don't I apply, let's apply rolling. And I want that initial transcript sent. So now you'll see Rider is added into my Colleges I'm Applying To list. So now that you're there, you can click on the Colleges tab here up at the top and then the Colleges Home button. If you scroll down a bit, you'll see letters of recommendation here under the Apply to College section. And from here, it's pretty simple. You can see Miss Almonte is already a recommender for Rowan and George Washington, but both of these schools allow more than one recommendation to be sent. So I'm going to add another, and we're going to select, let's see if Mr. Brennan will write a letter of recommendation for me. So I only want Mr. Brennan to send to Ryder and to Rowan. So I'm going to check those 2 schools off. Even if we were going to use Mr. Brennan for all current and future recommendations in terms of the colleges we're applying to, we still need you to choose specific colleges from the list and either select or unselect them for each teacher that you are using for a recommendation. It's a good thought to leave a personal note for the teacher that is writing this letter of recommendation for you. And we'll check to make sure everything looks good, and it does, and we'll just click Submit Request, and you'll see up top, you'll say, way to go. Mr. Brennan's going to be notified of my request, and Mr. Brennan will then go into Naviance and upload and send that letter of recommendation. So we promise we are now almost complete here with the college application process. So that would be good if I didn't have Doug Peterson trying to interrupt my presentation over here. Sorry, Doug, and sorry, Eagle fans. We almost got it done yesterday. As we head back over here to our pin card, one other thing that I wanted to make sure that I was clear about was that portion about teacher letters of recommendation was only a request that the teacher send the letter. That was not actually having the students send the letter, because students don't send those letters. It's just a request of the teacher. So now once all that is done, we're just going to go ahead and hit our Submit button here, and you're going to see, oh, Mr. Glock's digital pin card was submitted. That's great. If I need to submit another one, I can. If I'm applying to more than 10 schools, you simply just click here and submit another response and start over. Very quick, very, very easy. However, Mr. Pogue, there is one thing that we know for everybody watching this webinar here today. You're going to follow these instructions and submit this pin card on time, and then no matter what, Doesn't matter what happens, this is going to happen to everybody.
So every student is going to get an email from one of the colleges they've applied to that says, great, you've applied, you've met your deadline, everything is wonderful, except we don't have your transcript, your letter of recommendation, we need your counselor to send it. Then, of course, the student's going to be a little bit upset because they said, well, I followed all the steps, I did the pink card, I did everything on time, I sent my scores, everything should be great. What are they doing over in guidance? And what we're going to say is, if you followed the steps, take a break, wait a week, call the college. Well, I'm going to steal Mr. Glock's explanation because he really explains as well. College is not Amazon. Unfortunately, they don't work as quickly. So if you order something from Amazon and you have Prime, you'll have it that day sometimes. College process just takes a little bit longer. So what's going to happen is they're going to match all the information that you've sent from either SAT or College Board or wherever, and it's going to get matched up. It takes them a little while to do that. So when you don't panic initially when you get the email, then you're going to wait, call the college, and the student is going to call the college. We can't stress that part enough. Please do not call for your students. It is not a good look from the college's perspective if they're not handling their own responsibilities. So we need them to call and ask, and it's going to be a 4-second phone call where the college looks up something, they check, and then they say, oh yeah, we have your stuff, don't worry. So before the student comes running to us and saying, what are you doing, you haven't done it right, just relax. If they followed all the steps in the pink card, everything will be okay.
We recognize what we have just asked of you is going to be very, very atypical. We have asked for an inordinate amount of patience when it comes, because we recognize the anxiety, and it's why we want to go out of our way to highlight what Matt just talked about, because we know it's going to happen, and we know everyone tends to freak out when that kind of thing happens, and we assure you, even though this may be the first time that you are going through this process with one of your children, I've been here now 13 years. If you follow these pink card instructions, I have a 100% success rate of getting things there. And that's not even an exaggeration. For students who have followed the directions through the years, we've never missed one. That's a promise. Okay. So that said, let's see, how are we doing over there with the question and answer section, live question people? Do we have anything else we want to talk about? I'm sorry. We're working on being louder. We need some better equipment. So we'll give everybody another minute or two to, if you have any other last minute questions over there on the YouTube site, go ahead and submit them. If there's anything that we need to talk about, we absolutely will. I really want to echo one of the things that Matt had just talked about, actually, and it's about parents wanting to become involved in the college process on behalf of their children. Because a lot of times as adults we feel as though we may be able to communicate what the issues are to a college maybe a bit better than our students can. And I promise you that you do not want to speak to a college on behalf of your child. The only time that you want to get involved in this admissions process is when we're talking about financial aid. Okay? After an acceptance has already happened, if the financial package is not something that you feel as though is doable for your family, it's common for parents to have a conversation with the financial departments at a particular college. But when it comes to the admissions process, under no circumstance should you be communicating with the school. We've had parents go as far as calling an admissions office and pretending to be their child. That's a horrible idea. We've heard pretty much every story under the sun that you can imagine about why you don't want to do that. So please allow the kids some time to do their thing and to communicate on their own behalf.
Can you talk about the coalition application?
Yeah.
And a little bit more about the parent brag sheet?
Sure. So the first question was, can we talk a little bit more about the coalition application? This will give us a chance to talk about applications in general. So what would you say if students have a choice between common application, a school zone application, or the coalition application? Is there like a pecking order?
Well, there definitely is. If you have the option of the Common App, we are absolutely recommending that you use it. It is the tested and proven way that has been effective, and we know that it works very, very well with Naviance. And because we're using Naviance so frequently sending things, we would love that if you could use it. Now, if you don't have the option, of course, you can't use it. But if you have an option between the actual school's application and using the Common App, we also still want you to use the Common App. Because if you don't, it kind of limits what we can do on our end sending electronically. So just something to keep in mind. But Rule of thumb is if you have an option for Common App, please use it.
Another issue regarding the coalition application. Coalition application and Naviance do work together. When we have the ability to send materials electronically through Naviance when students apply with the coalition. However, you're just going to find with the coalition application, it's a lot longer. It's pretty tedious. We recognize that more of our students apply to Rutgers than to any other college that students apply to here from Montgomery, and Rutgers does accept the coalition application. If students are also going to apply to another coalition school, like Maryland, for example, where you have to use the coalition application, then by all means, apply to Rutgers using the coalition application. Don't make more work for yourself if you're put in a situation where you have to use the coalition application. But if all things are equal and you don't have to use the coalition application, we would recommend that you not. What was the other? The parent brag sheet, Ms. Appel. Ms. Appel said there was a question about the parent brag sheet. Was there any more specific guidance on what they wanted to know? Okay, so if you do go into the student's Naviance account and on the About Me section, which is in the top right corner, you'll see a section that says My Surveys. And it's probably going to be in a survey not yet completed, so you'll just click on that. And the parent point of view is just basically about 4 questions that we ask parents to fill out. It's basically bragging about your child. The main reason is because maybe there are just things through the years, right, that they just haven't told us.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes kids are humble and they just think that, oh, that wasn't a big deal that I did this, but you may look back on something and say, oh, no, that was a pretty big deal. We're real proud of this. And if the student forgot to mention it, we'd love to be able to include it and brag about them in their letters as well.
Ms. Appel, we have any other questions that are moving along there for anybody? All right, we'll give you one more second to get on there and ask any more questions that you have. Is this webinar going to be? Yeah, the webinar is actually going to be posted probably within the next 5 or 10 minutes, right in the exact spot where you were watching it on the guidance website. I'm just going to go ahead and embed the video link. You can go back and watch it as many times as you might need to. The other thing that I would say is that summarily as a guidance department here, we treat the fall as time for seniors. Seniors don't really need to make an appointment with us. Any day at lunch, any day during study hall or early dismissal that they want to come down and see us, they absolutely can pop in. We're happy to answer any questions that anybody has. We'll walk kids through whatever they need.
I guess one other thing that's kind of come up is the Rutgers application. So most of our students apply to Rutgers, and one unique thing about their application is they want you to self-report your grades. So there are some schools that will ask you to do that, and for the student, all that means is asking us for a copy of their transcript, and then from that they'll be able to input what courses they took, their grades, and all of that information is submitted. But with Rutgers, there's a separate part of the student self-reported academic record. So that is a separate part of the application. They'll create a login for that, as well as creating a login for the actual Rutgers application. They'll complete both of those and submit them, and then they've actually applied to Rutgers. They'll also need to send their test scores, but Rutgers is a school that doesn't really require anything from the guidance department. They don't really need a letter of recommendation. They really don't want it. They also don't want anything in terms of school profile. They get the information they need from their internal site.
Self-reporting has become an increasingly popular trend throughout the country. It's a lot of bigger schools, I would say. The entire California state school system self-reports, has students self-report their grades, and students just basically type in their grades, and then at the end of the year, I would say, the school will say to us, hey Montgomery, here's the 44 students who are going to come to Rutgers. Send us their transcripts. We then compare that information and they match up what the students have reported and what the transcript says. And obviously we want the students to be truthful as they self-report. We have yet to run into that situation, so we have a lot of faith in our students that we will not run into that situation as we continue to move forward. Anything else, Ms. Appel, over there from the question section? Wonderful. Mr. Pogue, anything else?
No, I think that's
all right. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the second ever Montgomery High School guidance webinar on the college application process. I'm Keith Glock, it's Matt Pogue, and I want to say thank everybody for watching.